Welcome, everyone. I'm Brianne Chavez, the Executive Director of the Washington State Nursery and Landscape Association. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Power Up Your Pollinators, Understanding the Why. This webinar is proudly funded by the WSDA Specialty Crop Block Grant and is part of a three-part series designed specifically for growers and wholesale nurseries. Over the next hour, we'll explore the importance of pollinators, why they matter to your crops, and practical strategies to support them in the growing operations. We're excited to share this information with you and hope you'll come away with actionable insights to power up your pollinators and enhance your business and the broader ecosystem. Our subject matter expert today is Elaine Sawyer with Sound Horticulture. Elaine learned the art of biocontrols and beneficial insects while working as a greenhouse manager for the Environmental Horticulture Program at Lake Washington Tech in Kirkland, Washington. In her role at Sound Horticulture, she works with educational accounts, as well as Intermountain West customers to connect them with biological solutions and strategies. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, Elaine, and let you take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Brianne. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this presentation all about pollinators. As she said, my name is Elaine. I work with Sound Horticulture, and our goal is to help growers with biological control programs and reduce the use of chemicals in the environment. Today, I'll be drawing from a wealth of knowledge on pollinators from the Xerces Society website. The Xerces Society is a fantastic organization with the goal to protect pollinators, conserve endangered species, reduce the use of pesticides, and advocate for change. I would recommend looking at their website for further information on the topic. Okay, so what makes insects so successful? Here's a quote by the Norwegian scientist and author Anne Sverdrup Thygesen. She says, "One important reason for insects' enormous success is that they can fly. What a fantastic innovation that must have been sometime around 400 million years ago. Now insects had access to something unique. Equipped with wings, they could reach the nutrition in the plants more efficiently while simultaneously avoiding earthbound enemies. For the more adventurous, wings offered brand new opportunities to disperse to new pastures. One point is crucial to understanding how wildly successful wings were for the early insects. Nothing else could fly. There were not yet any birds, bats, or pterosaurs, and they could be a long time coming. That meant that insects had global dominance of the air for more than 150 million years. In comparison, our own species, Homo sapiens, has spent a total of just 200,000 short years on the planet. So superpower number one is flight. Number two are two distinct life stages. Often insects have two life stages with vastly different body types. This avoids competition by having two different food sources and habitats. An example would be a caterpillar and a butterfly, like this monarch caterpillar. Juveniles focus on feeding and growth, while the adult forms centers its life around reproduction and dispersal. Having two distinct life stages contributes to an insect's success in the animal kingdom. There are more than 200 million insects for every human being living on the planet today. Like it or not, they have you surrounded because Earth is the planet of the insects. Insects are the most common animals on our planet. They live on every continent, from snow-covered mountains to blistering hot deserts and everything in between. And I encourage you to learn about bugs, to read about bugs, and start to notice all the good bugs around you. And these are some great books that I've read recently, all about insects. So without insects, we might as well be living on an alien planet, because basically they keep the world alive. They are a food source for many animals. They have pollination services, which produce fruits and vegetables which feed the world. They recycle nutrients and improve soil health. They clean up waste from the environment. They are a biological pest control, and they provide us with honey, beeswax, silk-colored dyes, shellac, and more. A significant percentage of the world's food crops depend on insect pollination, and these pollination services from bees, flies, and more delivers billions of dollars to the United States economy. I want to talk a little bit briefly about confectioner's glaze. Confectioner's glaze is made from shellac, which is a resinous substance secreted from the lac insect found in India and Thailand. It's used by candy companies to give items a smooth and glossy finish and prevent dehydration. It's also used on apples, jelly beans, malted milk balls, junior mints, candy corn, and more. So that's why I have a junior mints picture there, because you may have recently eaten some insects, because it's on a lot of things that people are unaware of. There's a dramatic decline in populations of bees and other insects worldwide. According to the scientific studies, 90% of pollen samples from beehives and more than 90% of stream samples are contaminated with more than one pesticide. Remember the days of insect splatter on the windshield? Those days are gone now. Insects are disappearing, and this is why we need to reduce our reliance on pesticides and create pesticide-free zones and get used to a little bit of cosmetic damage from insects. So what are the main pollinator perils? Those include loss and degradation of habitat, including agriculture and urban development, light pollution, which puts nocturnal animals at risk. There's actually a lot of nighttime pollinators, moths, flies, and even bees, which can get disoriented with the lights that are out there. Introduction of invasive non-native species, climate change, which disrupts plant communities and suitable habitat, the spread of diseases and parasites, and pesticide poisoning, which may persist in the environment for months or even years. Insects do the lion's share of pollination in our world, and while bats, birds, and even lemurs can pollinate flowers, almost all of pollination is done by insects. Some plants rely on only one species of insect for pollination. So who are these pollinators? Well, bees are considered the most important group of pollinators because female bees collect nectar and pollen from flowers as food for their offspring and consequently transfer large quantities of pollen from flower to flower. 4,000 species of bees are native to the United States, and most of them are solitary ground nesting bees. Butterflies and moths. Moths are the most important group of pollinators for night blooming plants. Wasps are carnivorous actually during their larval stage, but the adults feed on flower nectar and will even seek out honeydew from aphids. Flies. Syrphid or hoverflies closely resemble bees to confuse potential predators, and flies have two wings, and they're in the order Diptera, meaning two, while bees have four. The larvae of most hoverflies are predators of many plant pests like aphids. Beetles are pollinators. They represent the greatest diversity with over 30,000 species in North America alone. They're important pollinators of bowl-shaped flowers such as magnolias and water lilies, and some of these flowers give off specific odors to attract the beetles. Birds and bats are pollinators. Lemurs in Madagascar and also the honey possum in Australia is a known pollinator. Pollinators they need lots of things. Just like us, they need food, but in the form of abundant flowering plants that provide access to pollen and nectar throughout the growing season. They need access to shelter and nesting sites, including host plants for butterflies, pithy stems, dead wood, and bare earth for bees. They need protection from pesticides which kill non-target insects and degrade habitat. There's more and more evidence that pesticides are contaminating our habitats at levels that harm native pollinators. They need advocates who are willing to make changes in their own landscape, but also teach others and spread the word to encourage pollinator-friendly practices. So next, I'd like to take a look at how we can protect pollinators from the view of growers, landscapers, and garden centers. So starting with growers. Growers can do lots of things to help pollinators. And in the upper corner here, you can see a little handout from the Xerces Society, which is great to download. It's offering Bee Safe Plants, a guide for nurseries, and I recommend taking a look at that. But growers can implement a pollinator-friendly IPM plan. They can create a robust scouting and monitoring program for pests and disease. They can quickly respond to pests before they get out of hand. Remember the high reproductive capacity of insects. If you ignore them for the weekend, you could have thousands on Monday because they reproduce so quickly. You got to respond quickly to them. Growers can plant resistant cultivars and quarantine troubled plants away from the main crops. They can use physical barriers like netting to exclude pests and trap plants to attract pests away from the main crop and provide habitat for beneficial insects. They can promote natural enemies with habitat plantings around the greenhouse and augment with beneficial insects. And they can avoid neonicotinoids and rely on soaps and oils and microbial pesticides to try and knock down pests. For landscapers, um, the Xerces Society also provides a great handout, which is a habitat assessment guide for pollinators in yards, gardens, and parks. And some of the things landscapers can do: pollinators need a diversity of abundant flowers, shrubs, and trees that bloom throughout the growing season. Native plants do the best job of supporting the widest array of native pollinators. Many insects overwinter underneath leaf litter or under loose soils, so providing a diverse habitat with features like logs and leaves will increase the success of insects. Use pesticides cautiously as part of an IPM program that addresses pollinator protection. And encourage and teach clients about pollinator-friendly practices. That's quite a list, but they're all really important things. Some of the things on that checklist to promote pollinators are to plant a native wildflower garden with species that bloom in succession all season long. And of course, humans love the same thing. We love plants that bloom in succession, and insects appreciate that as well. You can reduce the lawn footprint and convert to flowering habitat. Gradually replace perennial and annual landscaping that provides little value to wildlife. And some people think, well, don't all flowers provide value to wildlife? Well, I was recently reading about a single flower versus a double flower, and the single flower has more access to pollen. The double flowers don't, and so insects can't use those for pollination, and they're not beneficial to insects. So all those beautiful double flowers, which we love, may not be the best thing for our pollinators. Another item on that checklist is to avoid pesticides on lawns and choose less harmful alternatives and non-chemical controls. Leave the dead wood leaf litter and the leaf litter. You can use the leaf litter as mulch around trees. Avoid plastic mulch or weed barrier, and leave dead wildflower stems standing and prune them in early spring to create nesting sites for bees. And even installing a water feature can help with those pollinators. All right. In June 2013, more than 50,000 bumblebees were killed in Wilsonville, Oregon, when a landscaping company applied Safari active ingredient dinotefuran to blooming linden trees. In response to this, the Oregon Department of Agriculture prohibited the use of pesticide products containing neonicotinoids on linden and other Tilia species trees in Oregon. In August 2013, the EPA sent a letter to registrants requiring new pesticide labels for products containing neonicotinoids. This applies to all products containing active ingredients clothianidin, dinotefuran, imidacloprid, or thiamethoxam. These new labels included a bee advisory box or a pollinator protection box with directions for use. And so this box makes clear that pesticide products can kill bees and pollinators. The bee icon helps signal the pesticide's potential hazard to bees. It alerts users to separate restrictions on the label. It prohibits pesticide use when bees are present or foraging. And the new label makes it clear that pesticides cannot be applied to blooming plants. It also warns users that direct contact and ingestion could harm pollinators and highlights the importance of avoiding drift. So this bee box has been really important in the last few years to help people recognize the safety or the danger to pollinators. Always read the label before you buy and before you use a pesticide every time. Sometimes we get used to pesticides, but it's great to brush up on those labels. Always read the labels. All right, for garden centers, what can garden centers do to help protect pollinators? Well, they can seek out USDA certified organic plants and seeds. Avoid plants grown with neonicotinoids and similar systemic insecticides. Ask nurseries about their pest management practices and provide fact sheets on buying bee-safe plants. So be aware that many plants come into garden centers with pesticide residues, and sometimes these residues can last for months, weeks, or months. So seek out plants grown organically and with biological pest control. You can also advertise your actions, put up signs, talk to your customers, and advertise pollinator-friendly plants and practices. why not celebrate with a pollinator festival? So there's lots of ways to promote pollinator education at a retail nursery. Correct identification of insects, both good and bad, is fundamental to growing and selling healthy crops and protecting insects. So provide trainings to educate your staff and consequently your customers. For instance, people may not know that this ladybug larvae here on the left is actually a good guy. It's a super predator. It eats all kinds of things. This middle one is Aphidius, the beneficial parasitic wasp, which attacks aphids. It doesn't sting people, but it's really good for aphid control. This one is the hummingbird hawk moth, and these moths, their fuzzy bodies are really good because the pollen sticks right to that fur. And finally down here, this one looks scary, but it's a larvae from a syrphid or hoverfly. And this is another super predator. It will eat aphids all day long. So if you see those on your plants, you want to leave them. They're good. All right, instead of using chemicals to manage pests, consider applying natural enemies. These can include predators, parasitoids, and pathogens. Biological pest control has proven to be an effective and established method. One of the pioneers of biocontrol, Carl Huffaker, once said, "If you kill a natural enemy, you inherit its work." Let's keep those natural enemies around so we don't need any more work. Okay, so what are the other benefits of biocontrol? Biocontrol is environmentally friendly, reducing the use of conventional pesticides. It uses natural enemies like predators and parasitoids, and ladybugs and lacewing larvae are examples. It uses bacteria and fungal products, biopesticides, and these can reduce pest populations. Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, is an example of this. And part of this process is to create a diverse habitat with insectary plants that will provide food, shelter, and breeding sites for beneficial insects. So what we're going to do now is jump into a few case studies of pests that you might find in your growing system. And the first one, let's pretend we're in a retail garden center and you have a small greenhouse, you're growing bedding plants and maybe some hanging baskets, and you always get aphids, and they show up early, don't they? They sure show up sometimes when the weather's cool, and they get out of control really quickly. So beneficial insects work really well. They work best at temperatures over 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So during that cool weather, before you can release beneficial insects, you need to consider spraying your biopesticides to knock down any aphid populations. So try and knock down what you can when the weather's cool. When it warms up, there's 3 really good predators that are great for aphids. And one of them is this one. This orange larvae is called Aphidoletes. And Aphidoletes is usually bought as a tiny midge or a fly. And it comes in a tray or a bottle, and you release it into the greenhouse. And they fly around. They're really good at locating aphids. They'll find an aphid colony and lay their eggs. And when the larvae hatch, the larvae are the predators. So this orange larvae here is eating an aphid. And they will eat all kinds of aphids, big or small, whatever. They love to eat aphids. They're a really good aphid predator. And these are best used preventatively and on a consistent basis. And that goes with most beneficial insects. If you use them preventatively and consistently, you're going to get the best results. So another aphid predator is this lacewing larvae here on the leaf. And these are also called aphid lions, and they are generalist predators. They'll eat all kinds of greenhouse pests. So thrips, spider mites, whitefly, and especially aphids. They're good at finding and eating aphids. Then they have those big pincher jaws. They'll just chomp down and suck the juices right out of the aphid. So lacewing larvae are really good to use on aphid hotspots. And finally, the Aphidius, the wasp, the one that's in the video here. So this shows the bottle of wasps that you get, and you just open it up and they'll fly around. They're great at locating aphids, and they actually will, the females will lay an egg inside of the aphid, which kills the aphid as the young wasp develops, and then the new wasp exits the aphid mummy. It's called an aphid mummy, and the cycle begins again. So if you can get these established in your growing system, that's a real bonus because you'll get that continual protection. So these are 3 predators that work really well for aphids. Using your biopesticides early in the season, you've got Aphidoletes, green lacewing larvae, and Aphidius. Think prevention when you're thinking of using biocontrols. So here's a great quote from Kim Clark of Lambert Growers. She says, "The historic battle against aphids in our pepper crops was a major catalyst in using biocontrol at Lambert's. Peppers have always made up a significant portion of our revenue, and the aphid stress was too much to handle. Once we got our biocontrol program in motion, the weight melted off our shoulders when we could confidently sell our healthy, lush plants. Not only was it a relief, but we now also have another reason for folks to shop small and local." So it was really great to see that she used the aphidia successfully for her peppers. And here on this basil leaf, you can see the aphid mummies, which is what they look like after they've been parasitized by aphidius. So sometimes aphids in the landscape are different or sometimes hard to identify, and you can find them by looking for honeydew or ladybugs. Ladybugs will show up to start eating the aphids, and that's a sign that there's aphids there. So if you see a beautiful ladybug on your rose, you might know that there's another problem going on. Learn to identify natural enemies like ladybugs and hoverflies. Use a strong jet of water to dislodge aphids from sturdy plants. You can also prune off severely infested portions of plants. And beware of high nitrogen fertilizers. Use them sparingly as they can stimulate new growth, which attracts aphids. Aphids are always attracted to that high nitrogen new growth. Growing insectary plants can attract and feed and shelter beneficial insects. And examples of these are dill, coriander, parsley, buckwheat, sweet clover, anise, and others. Out of nearly 1 million known insects, only 1 to 3% are considered pests. So most of the insects out there are the good guys. They're doing their job. They're helping us. The greater disconnect with our natural setting, the more difficult and expensive our pest control efforts become. All right, next are thrips. So thrips are a big problem because they're so tiny. They hide in every little crack and crevice. And in this case study, let's pretend that we are a wholesale grower and we've got like hundreds of crops in a greenhouse, lots of different things going on, and the thrips come in. And what are we going to do? So definitely, if you can, screen if possible, screen those windows or louvers, the doors, to prevent thrips from coming in from the fields. Use yellow sticky cards for monitoring and also for traps. So every thrip that you trap is stopping like generations and generations from bothering your plants. So why not use those traps as much as you can? And if one of the most common thrips that we have in the greenhouse is the western flower thrip. And this thrip actually lays its egg on the plant, and then one of the younger stages drops to the soil to pupate. So while they're in the soil, we can release some soil predators. So let's talk about a few different predators that are really good for thrips, starting with those soil predators. We've got nematodes, Stratiolaelaps, and Dolocia the rove beetle. So beneficial nematodes are really great to use for thrips pupae in the soil. They also work to attack fungus gnat larvae in the soil as well. So it's a good soil predator. Stratiolaelaps is the soil predatory mite. It's a generalist, so it'll feed on fungus gnat larvae as well as thrips pupae in the soil, and also find other things to eat like fungus and things down there. So if you put an application of strat mites into your plants, they will persist usually for the life of the crop while it's in the greenhouse. So it's not something you have to do every week, usually 1 or 2 applications and you're set. So this is a really good and easy predator to use. And then the rove beetle is another soil predator. It'll get down there and eat those thrips pupae and fungus gnat larvae in the soil as well. Some people actually build little breeder boxes and you can start your own colony of Dolocia rove beetles in the greenhouse, which is great. And then for thrips on the foliage, kind of our baseline program is to use predatory mites like Amblysius cucumeris or Amblysius swerskii. And these are really great because they don't eat the adult stages, but they'll eat the juvenile stages of thrips. And they'll be out on the plant, moving all over and hunting down thrips on all the leaves. So what eats the larger thrips or the adult stages? That's the Aureus minute pirate bug. So this is another predator you could release to go after those thrips. So you can see there's lots of different layers: soil, juvenile, adults, all kinds of predators for different things. And if you put them all together, you're going to get a really good thrips control program going. What a difference mites make. This is a really cool statistic. It's just incredible. Just having beneficial mites on your crops will reduce pest pressure even if they aren't eating the pests. And these are called non-consumptive effects. Research is now suggesting that non-consumptive effects like harassment may account for 50% of the pest control we see in the greenhouse. So let's start this little video showing some thrips, and they've added sound to this video. It's from Ontario Floriculture. And the predatory mites, when they come up, the thrips have to stop feeding. They have to stop living their best life because these predators are just harassing them. And it's just amazing what predatory mites can do. Yeah, look at that bothering of that thrip. So having mites around is a good thing, having beneficial mites. All right, so let's move to our last case study. This is, say you work for a city park or a landscape, and you've got weevils. Weevils are beetles that attack over 100 species of plants. The adults climb up the plants at night and feed on the leaf edges, creating a notching. The larvae live underground and feed on young roots, and the larval stage is the most susceptible stage to biological control. And nematodes are used to target many types of soil-dwelling pests, including beetle larvae. But which nematode to use? I don't know if you realize, but there's several different species out there, and some of them work best at differing temperatures or for various pests. Steinernema carpocapsae is commonly used for beetle larvae, but it's most effective between 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So summer would be the best time to use this nematode. Steinernema kraussei is often used to target the black vine weevil, and this nematode species is effective between 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 86. So this nematode is preferred for fall applications. So having this information is pretty critical to know how to treat the pests at the different time of year. Water is the carrier to get nematodes where you want them, and you can water in by hand or use a backpack sprayer, a tank sprayer, or a hose attachment to disperse those nematodes out onto the ground. All right, so what are nematodes? What are beneficial nematodes? They are microscopic roundworms that occur naturally in the soil. And there's two types of nematodes. There's entomopathogenic nematodes, which kill insects, and these are referred to as beneficial nematodes. Then there's also plant pathogenic nematodes, and these attack plants, like the root knot nematode, and these are considered pests. So when we talk about nematodes with biocontrols, we are talking about beneficial nematodes. When applied to the soil with water as the carrier, nematodes search for and enter insect pests through body openings. They then release symbiotic bacteria that infects and kills insect pests within 24 to 48 hours. Repeated applications are necessary for continual control of insect pests, and it's best to apply them early in the morning or on a cloudy day, as nematodes are susceptible to desiccation and UV light. Understanding the chemicals you're using and their side effects on insects is really important. Pests can develop resistance to chemicals that are sprayed repeatedly. Their high reproductive rate ensures that some will survive. Pesticide residues can destroy a biocontrol program, and in fact, 90% of the time that biocontrol programs fail, it's due to pesticides. So really keep that in mind when you start your biocontrol program. Some pesticides have direct effects and others have indirect effects, which affect foraging and reproduction. Fungicides can also impact insects. Some pesticides are safe when dry, others may take weeks for the residual effects to wear off. IRAC is the Insecticide Resistance Action Committee, and this is a great website to review and bookmark, and they recommend alternating products with different modes of action. And in fact, over 550 insects and mites have developed resistance to chemicals in the last 50 years. So one thing good about biological control using beneficial insects is you don't develop a resistance to somebody eating you. Yay for biocontrols. All right, biological and botanical pesticides, how to level the playing field. So you're using biological controls. Some people think if I'm going to use good bugs, that's all I need, but that's not true. Sometimes you do need to level the playing field, and you do need to get some biological pesticides in your greenhouse. Utilize these natural insecticides because they have less direct effect on beneficial insects. So biopesticides are inherently less toxic than conventional pesticides. They greatly reduce or eliminate the amount of conventional pesticide needed, and they're generally effective in very small quantities and decompose quickly. Myco-insecticides contain beneficial fungus that attack insects. Examples would be Botanigard or no-fly or velifer. And trichoderma fungus in root shield acts as a fungicide, but it also acts as a biostimulant. So some of these pesticides can have a lot of good effects to your plants. Here's another quote from Katie from the University of Washington greenhouse, and she says, with our tobacco and milkweed plants grown for insect rearing, we have found that when starting with clean transplants, the Encarsia formosa has really suppressed and actually eradicated the whitefly populations for our researchers. After we released N. californicus, we were very pleased with the almost immediate control of spider mites on our peanuts, cotton, and datura plants, which normally are quickly ravaged by thrips and spider mites. They are consistently clean now after our releases every few weeks. So it's really good to hear from other people, talk to other growers to find out what's working for them. It's good to share information. So what are the keys to biological control success? Create a plan and be patient. It takes time to see the results with bios. So having a plan is super important. If you've been in the greenhouse or the landscape for several years, you already know the pests are out there. You already know actually when they're going to show up. And so you can plan ahead for this and you can put your preventative releases out accordingly. So focus on prevention, not on reaction. Don't call us for a load of beneficial insects after your roses are covered in aphids. It might be too late. Use pesticides with the lowest impact on beneficials. Scout for pests on a regular basis and keep good records. I would recommend weekly scouting. That seems to work really well. And practice good sanitation and cultural controls for healthy plants. The Northwest Center for Alternatives to Pesticides, NCAP. NCAP is a leading voice in the Northwest for non-toxic pest and weed solutions and promoting safe alternatives for our health. It began in 1977 to serve communities throughout Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And from blog posts to a host of resources, this group can assist your efforts to protect pollinators. One of the highlights of the website are the pesticide fact sheets, and these review the uses for many common chemicals and how they kill insects, their toxicity, their effects on other animals like birds, fish, earthworms, beneficial insects, plants, and water contamination. Some of the chemicals like imidacloprid have best management practice sheets as well. So this is a very useful resource that I would recommend bookmarking on your computer. This little page right here, actually they have a website which has lists of neonicotinoid-free nurseries in Washington State, which I find really useful, and questions to ask your nursery. So these are some questions you could take in and ask your local nursery. Do you know which of your suppliers uses neonicotinoids? So really good resource is this website. So what can we do to help? We need to protect our pollinators from pesticides, avoiding neonicotinoids and other chemicals with long residuals. Focus on prevention and utilize natural enemies. Source plants that have been grown with organic methods. Provide abundant flowering plants with nectar and pollen that bloom throughout the seasons, favoring natives. Create a habitat with shelter and nesting sites for insects, and help customers and clients learn more. You can visit the Xerces Society website and get involved in their pollinator protection plan in your area as well. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking about how to protect our pollinators. Remember to plant more flowers, and here you can see this beautiful St. Anthony evening primrose in this windy conditions, and pollinators are still doing their job. So thank you again.